Why South Korea's version of the Iron Dome will be more capable? South Korea is building an artillery interception system similar to Israel's Iron Dome to thwart rockets and long range missiles launched by North Korea. How will South Korea's system differ from Israel's? South Korea's Defense Procurement Agency announced that it had approved plans to develop an artillery system similar to Israel's Iron Dome. This new defense system will be designed and built specifically to thwart attacks by rockets and long range missiles launched by North Korea. The South Korean government had announced in June that it would be spending approximately 2.5 billion on research and development of this new system with a target to deploy it by 2035. North Korea deploys around 1,000 artillery pieces along the military demarcation line that divides the Korean peninsula. A Yonhap news report quoted South Korean military officials saying this includes multiple 240mm rocket launchers, most of which are directly aimed at the South Korean capital, Seoul, and its larger metropolitan areas that is home to approximately half the country's population according to government estimates. Following the armistice that brought a halt to the Korean War in 1953, both countries have built up massive military presence on both sides of the military demarcation line along the 38th parallel. The Iron Dome responds to rockets fired by militant groups such as Hamas and irregular forces sporadically. Some parts of the system will bear similarities, but what we are going to build is designed to intercept long-range artillery pieces by North Korea, which requires a higher level of technologies given the current security situation, Colonel Soo Yong Swan, spokesperson of the Defense Acquisition Program Administration, had said at a military briefing according to Yonhap news agency. What has prompted this? South Korea's decision to develop this new defense system is the result of a long defense acquisition procedure, said Kim Yong-jun, professor at the Korea National Defense University. Of course, North Korea has always been one of the consideration for South Korea's military defense development, but it is not the only cause for it. South Korea is surrounded by powerful neighboring countries like China, Russia, Japan, and others. At the same time, South Korea's military posture has largely been North Korea centric, particularly over the last decade. Dr. Jagannath Panda, coordinator of the East Asia Center at MDIDSA, New Delhi, told IndianExpress.com. The South Koreans have been continuously trying to upgrade their military capabilities. Israel's Iron Dome system was very much in South Korea's radar for a very long time. What do we know about defense ties between Israel and South Korea? A little over a decade ago, both countries began expanding cooperation in the field of military and defense, with Seoul showing interest in purchasing military hardware, including drones, missiles, and radar from Israel. At that time, researchers had believed that potential purchases would possibly include missile defense systems. South Korea's most recent plans need to be analyzed in context of the country's military modernization process that has occurred over the past few decades. Panda said, their export policy internationally in terms of selling arms and ammunition to the Latin American countries and the Middle East has been on a grand scale. But at the same time, they have been very receptive to adapting to military systems of the world, copying the US, Israel, and other countries. Israel has been a reference point for South Korea for some time now, and the recent Iron Dome system is part of the process, Panda said. In 2012, some researchers had speculated that South Korea was planning to make Israel one of its main arms supplier in addition to the United States, a decision that was rooted in its desire to procure advanced weapon systems and technology to deter threats from North Korea. In 2009, the South Korean military purchased the Israeli Green Pine Block B, an Israeli ground-based missile defense radar that cost approximately 215 million. This was followed by the signing of two more deals between the Israel Aerospace Industries and South Korea, where Seoul purchased radar systems manufactured by ELTA, a subsidiary of the Israel Aerospace Industries. South Korea first expressed interest following a high-level visit to Israel by the Vice Commissioner of the South Korean Defense Acquisition Program Administration, Kyung Oh-bon, in June 2011. He toured Israel defense industry and also met senior defense ministry officials. Reports suggested that during this visit, Kyun had also met with representatives of the Rafael Advanced Defense Systems and expressed interest in the Iron Dome rocket interception system. A year prior to this visit, South Korean military authorities had considered using the Iron Dome in the country following the artillery attack on Yongyang Island in November 2010, the Hankyo newspaper reported. None of this should come as a surprise to observers of the Korean Peninsula, Panda said. South Korea's defense ministry is continuously trying to modernize the country's defense industry. We know South Korean companies are very competitive and believe in innovative arms and ammunition, and trying to copy something on the Israel model has been a practice by the South Korean defense companies for a long time. So what we are seeing is part concern due to North Korea, part military modernization strategy, and part of South Korea's innovation strategy that it has employed for the last 1 decade or so, Panda explained. How will South Korea's Iron Dome differ from Israel's? South Korea's defense ministry said the country's version of the Iron Dome would be very different from Israel and would also cost a lot more. There are operational differences between the two systems as well, with the most significant being that South Korea's system will be designed to intercept long-range artillery pieces. But more importantly, South Korea and Israel face different security threats that require different responses, experts agree. There is also a significant difference between the belligerents in both cases. While Israel contends with Hamas, which is primarily a militant group, South Korea had to contend with North Korea, a nation with its own extensive military capabilities. There are also other factors at play here, explained Kim. Israel's system is fit for its geography, the desert and threats like rocket shooting by non-state actors. But South Korea has different geography with mountain terrain with threats from traditional state actors. Thus, South Korea will develop its own type of weapon system fit for its geography and environment. Why is this development generating domestic criticism in South Korea? In South Korea, these plans to acquire an indigenous version of the Iron Dome have generated some domestic criticism as well. Some politicians and activists have criticized the government for spending more on developing military capabilities to deter North Korea, while on the other hand, Moon Jae-in government has been more friendly with its predecessors with Pyongyang. Some argue that Moon Jae-in administration has a contradictory policy between the Korean Peninsula peace process and defense development, but it is not contradictory, explained Kim. For instance, the US had good diplomatic ties with the Soviet, but prepared for defense measures during the Cold War. Today, the US has trade relations with China, but the US Department of Defense considers the PLA as the main threat. Kim believes South Korea is merely looking out for its own interest in the Korean Peninsula and the region at large. Will this have implications for East Asia? In Northeast Asia complex geopolitical dynamics, South Korea's decision to develop this new defense system is bound to cause consternation, experts agree. Japan might keep a cautious eye and might not be happy with South Korea possessing such a model like Israel. But they aren't really opposed to it either, because they know that these capabilities are being developed keeping North Korea in mind, said Panda. South Korea will be developing these new missiles with the knowledge of the Americans and alliance partner of both Japan and South Korea. But China will see it as a negative development because, as we know, when THAAD was deployed, both China and Russia reacted very strongly. According to Panda, Russia has never been in favor of advanced militarization in the Korean peninsula because it believes that such development may only check Russian influence and military might in Northeast Asia. The security architecture in Northeast Asia would not really be stable, and this is the main cause of concern for Beijing and Moscow right now. Both are monitoring the situation for now but are bound to react. Thank you.